Welcome back to another PFF Prospect Profile. Today we're going to be breaking down Roquan Smith, the Georgia linebacker and the #1 linebacker on our big board. Sam, tell me what makes him so special.
Coverage. Today's NFL is all about coverage. It's the most important facet of the game. Gone are the days where a linebacker's primary responsibility was to meet a fullback in the hole and create a giant pile of destruction. Now they've got to cover. They've got to cover slot receivers. They've got to cover tight ends. And Roquan Smith is the best coverage linebacker in this draft class.
Yeah, you might think he's undersized at 6'1", 225, and that did used to be undersized. But now the best coverage linebacker in the NFL, Deion Jones, was even smaller than that coming out of college. So that size does not really impact me. Yes, it could affect him in certain plays in the run game. But again, like you mentioned, 2018, do we really care about a handful of plays in the run game really affecting him when he's such a playmaker in his coverage ability?
I've heard Roquan Smith referred to as bootleg Deion Jones. I kind of like that. I think I'm going to steal it. And I think you see some of those numbers. If you just look at his coverage numbers, they're incredible. 90.6 coverage grade at PFF, the best among all linebackers in this class, and he allowed just a hair over half a yard per snap in coverage over this past season. Those are fantastic coverage numbers. And again, just looking at the tape, you see him excel in coverage in a variety of different ways. You see him drop off the line of scrimmage, recognize routes underneath him, whether it's crossing routes, whether it's dump off to running backs, come up and shut those down. But you also see him turn and run with slot receivers, track them into the back of the end zone and break up passes with defensive back style plays.
I think the thing that separates him in this linebacker class, when a loaded linebacker class full of all these freak athletes, is like you just mentioned there, his instincts. In coverage, you can't teach a lot of this feel for zone that he has, the fact that he breaks on route concepts so well, the fact that he reacts to underneath passes so well. You can't really teach that. It reminds me of Reuben Foster a lot coming out a season ago, where he was just so polished in that even despite being a little undersized, you just knew he was going to be good in that aspect. And Reuben Foster was year one. Roquan, though, doesn't have any of the off-field questions that Foster did.
No, he doesn't. And, one of the things people talk about is that because he's undersized, he's not going to be able to excel in the run game. You don't see him dominate in that regard the way you do some of these other linebackers. But it doesn't really reflect in the numbers. He had 74 defensive stops last season. That was the second most in the entire nation, the most among Power 5 linebackers. He is able to stop the run. He's able to make those impact plays at the line of scrimmage. I have rarely seen a player that is able to run sideline to sideline and not overcommit when it comes to securing tackles on running backs. He's able to fly sideline to sideline and still somehow break down and not allow that guy to make one hard cut back inside and him overshoot the play.
Yeah, that's the way NFL run games are also going, is these sideline runs, these wide runs. You watched Todd Gurley a season ago where he had most of his success was on pitch plays to the outside, getting wide. You have to have linebackers that can run because these offensive linemen can run faster than they could 10 years ago. These concepts are trying to get wider and wider to spread you out as much as humanly possible. You need linebackers that make those plays outside the tackles. Roquan's a perfect fit for them.
Well, what about negatives? Do we have any concerns with Roquan? Because there are people outside of PFF that don't have him as the top linebacker. They have some of these other sizable guys, these bigger linebackers as their #1.
Any negative you can say about Roquan Smith probably revolves around his physicality. Somewhat taking on blocks, being bodied by bigger tight ends, that sort of thing. And it shows up at times, like I mentioned, the taking on blocks thing. There are going to be times where larger offensive linemen get his hands on him, get him locked in, and won't let him separate because of his size. And there are times when a larger tight end will be able to get into his body and create that sort of separation, but he kind of makes up for it in a different number of ways, especially the coverage aspect with his closing speed. It's all these other linebackers might have more tools to someday get to where Roquan is. Roquan's just already there.
And the speed at which he reads the game offsets a lot of those problems. There are times where he beats a blocker to the spot because he's so quick at diagnosing what's going on, at getting to a spot before that guy can react. And the angles he takes to the ball are fantastic. They're rarely out of position to get that running or that play killed at the earliest possible opportunity. I think that offsets so many of those concerns.
Yep. There you have it. Roquan Smith, top linebacker on our board. Stay tuned for more PFF prospect profiles.